Explain why the random nature of radioactive decay makes it difficult to measure the values of the half-life to a high degree of accuracy. The half-life of a radioactive substance is the average time it takes for half of a given number of radioactive nuclei to decay. Radioactive decay is random, making it impossible to predict with certainty which nuclei will decay and when any particular nuclei will decay. For a short period of time, the fluctuations in the activity due to the random nature of radioactive decay will make it difficult to determine the half-life to a high degree of accuracy. If the activity is monitored over a longer period, the fluctuations due to random nature can be evened out. However, the low activity towards the end means the measurement is again inaccurate. If a large sample is used, the higher activity may pose a health hazard. Measurements are made of the activity of a specimen of carbon from pieces of wood found in a fireplace at an archaeological site. The specimen is found to contain 1 carbon-14 atom per 8.6 times 10 to the power of 10 carbon-12 atoms. In similar carbon from a modern fire, the concentration of carbon-14 atoms is greater at 1 carbon-14 per 3.3 times 10 to the power of 10 carbon-12 atoms. The difference between these two figures is because carbon-14 is radioactive and some atoms have decayed over the years. Calculate the age of the wood from the ancient fire. The half-life of carbon-14 is 1.8 times 10 to the power 11 seconds. Carbon-12 is stable. So we know this relationship n is equal to n naught e to the power minus lambda t, and lambda is ln 2 over the half-life. So we get a time of 2.487 times 10 to the power 11 seconds. The technique of dating described in B is difficult to do accurately. This difficulty can be minimized by using all the carbon-14 atoms rather than just those which happen to undergo radioactive decay when dating is being carried out. Carbon atoms from the wood can be ionized by removing 1 electron from each atom. They are then formed into a beam which is passed through a magnetic field as shown. So you have the carbon 12 and carbon 14 coming together, having the same spin in vacuum, and then after that you pass through a magnetic field, they will get separated out. Then you can use a detector to look at the relative number of carbon 14 and carbon 12. Explain why the paths of the two types of ion are different. Now, the force in the magnetic field is given by QVB, and this is a centripetal force, so it's mv squared over r, so which means that the radius is mv over qb. So with the same speed and charge going into the same magnetic field of intensity b, the curvature of the path could be different if the masses are different. So as carbon-14 has a larger mass than carbon-12, the radius of curvature of the path for carbon-14 will be larger. Explain why the three sections of each path followed by the ions are straight, circular, straight, and why there is no change in the speed of an ion throughout. When an ion is traveling in vacuum, there is no net force acting on it. Hence, the sections of path before entering the magnetic field and that after leaving the magnetic field are straight. When the ion is in the magnetic field, the magnetic force is always perpendicular to its velocity. This changes the direction of the path of the ion without changing the speed, so the speed remains the same. Suggest why this method of measuring the ratio of carbon-14 to carbon-12 atoms is more reliable. Here, this method of measuring the ratio of carbon-14 to carbon-12 is more reliable as the carbon-12 and carbon-14 atoms are effectively separated and counted more accurately as a large number of atoms is used. In the former method, deducing the number of carbon-14 atom from its low activity will result in large error in counting as the decay process is random and spontaneous.